Um, for the last 6 months I've been obsessing and preoccupied and dreaming and thinking about this whole thing about creating a culture of reading in the school. Our school does a lot of reading, but there's still a long way that we can go. And in my research, my looking, my thinking, I kept trying to find a pattern that worked. I looked at all the different ideas that all these amazing people are doing, a lot of them on Twitter, and I thought, if I can find the way to connect the dots, and I'll find the recipe, I can bring the recipe here today, give everyone the recipe and we'll all be fine. I sort of found one, but not in the way I thought, so I think I have found a silver bullet. But I reckon it's made up of tenacity, passion, and collaboration. Or, if you prefer, straight down the line, bloody-mindedness, love, and other people. And I honestly think that's how you create a love of reading in your school, is by thinking you can't possibly do it on your own, and yet at the same time carrying on, even if nobody else is interested in it for a while, and really, really caring about the books and really, really caring about the children. And so I've ended up thinking that it's a drip process. And you literally, I'm going to use this little idea, and I'm going to use that little idea, and I'm going to use the other little idea, and I'm going to carry on. And I'm going to do all the different things, as much as is humanly possible. For me personally, it all started when I said to the children, because I was coming here, I said, I'm going to read a book a week of your teen fiction for the next year. I'm going to read a book a week, and you can help me to find good ones, but I'm going to do that, and I promise you I'm going to do that. And in that decision, in that commitment, I got invested in what they were choosing to read, and they know that I'm that invested in what we're doing, that I will go to those kind of lengths. So that's how it started, that's the beginning of my process. But before I talk about what I've been doing, and I've been collaborating with another school, going visiting, finding out what they're getting right, and they're doing some absolutely extraordinary things. I was hoping we could have a look together. We'll probably split into two groups at all the ideas that I got from Twitter, really, from a meeting that we had on Twitter about creating a culture of reading in the school, and find out really round the table which ones people have been finding and what they've been finding useful. So we came up with, we were given everything from literature festivals in the school, from having people into the library to do talks, which we find very, very successful, to going for non-fiction readers as well as fiction as well, and thinking about silent reading, thinking about reading in pairs, all these different ideas. So what I've got here is collected them all together. Hopefully some of them will be useful to people, but I'm also interested in what we have already found useful and collecting some anecdotes together. So if we could split down the middle, including me, have 4 of us here and 4 of you there, so that we don't all look at the same stuff on the left-hand side in the pale blue box. If we start at the bottom and you start at the top, feel free to do anything anywhere. We'll go. Can I interrupt you? No, it's just in case you've had amazing ideas that we haven't.
They've had brilliant ideas, actually. Can you say about your one about the library, the Key Stage 3?
The school that I've just started recently in a new role, Key Stage 3 coordinator in a new school, and prior to September, my school didn't have a library, which, as an English teacher, I find terrifying and sad all at once.
Yeah.
So we adapted one of the English classrooms and we've turned it into a library. We've made quite a big thing out of it. We've spent the very meagre budget that we have on sort of stocking the library and starting off with things like graphic novels to get the boys engaged, and there's a variety of different things on there. We've had donations, etc. But a really important thing for me, because we haven't got an active working library at the moment, we do have the local library around the corner. So we've got all of the Key Stage 3 students, and I'm running it out with Key Stage 4 next term. All of them are getting signed up, or are signed up, taking them down, and they've got one lesson a fortnight out of their Key Stage 3 timetable where we actually take our classes down to the library. So it's getting them in that environment in the first place. Obviously, that's the first hurdle.
Is it silent in there when you then?
Not when we're down there, obviously.
No. I don't remotely need to imply it should be. I'm just intrigued. I'm currently intrigued by the silence versus noise.
What I really liked about this, for a lot of us that work in schools where we've got children that have got a lot of need a lot of value added, was the fact that you might have a library in a town or something this kids have never been in. and you're taking them for the first time, aren't you? And then they'll feel comfortable about going back, and you're getting them a library card, and then long summer holidays, they're reading schemes with prizes and awards, and even if it's just like a 10% of them or 2% of them actually go and use it, you've got this kids that would never would have done it in the first place. I love it. I love it so much.
Well, I think there's more as well that we need to do to talk to libraries about how they secure their futures. You know, the ones that are left.
Absolutely.
They need hookups to local schools.
University libraries as well.
Yeah.
We have, what's the, Lisa, she comes to Blake's, doesn't she, for the teach meets, the librarian. Yeah, she works for Newcastle University or Northumbria University. And she's the university librarian. She's really keen to work with schools in the North East, certainly where we are, and get sort of trips of children coming up there. And things like getting them used to the classification systems and things like that, getting them to do sort of treasure trails around the library, and just familiarising them with
We're
that.
lucky because we have got a really good library. But I'm thinking about the summer holidays and how I want kids to carry on like working in summer holidays and if they can get into the local library and things like that.
Well, it's that old adage, isn't it? You can take a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. But if you're making that first step, then at least they've got
Show
an
them where the
option
water is.
that they wouldn't normally have. So it's interesting.
And Chris was saying about including in your reports.
In our reading data, we put in our reports for the first time last year, and we had a reading stall at our parents' evening. We were just talking about parents' evenings in the library, and it encouraged parents to come over when they saw that their son or daughter had sort of 2 years left or something on their chronological age. And so they came over and said, "Oh, I can't get Sam to read, blah, blah, blah. Can you suggest anything?" And we had a stack of books there that we could just give away that we brought in. Or asking the students, which book would you like? Oh, are they free? Yeah, go and take a book, kind of thing. And we probably only hit 10, 20 parents, but nevertheless.
That's 10 or 20
That's
people
right,
if it
yeah.
That
otherwise.
is a fantastic idea, but I didn't know about that, Chris. This is what we were talking about in your session this morning. We were talking about pedagogy and leading from the bottom up. Everybody needs to know what that kind of thing's going on in the schools. It's important.
I mean, I was just going to say we've done something very similar, and one of our big issues is that most of the parents of the kids in my school also went to my school. We're in a bubble, and most of those parents, they can't read particularly, and so we started off with that. And actually, what I found as the kind of literacy coordinator for the school was that parents were coming to me going, I can't help my child, and it's getting embarrassing now because I can't read the maths question to them. And so we then started running a series of Saturday morning reading breakfasts where we opened our library up, brought food in, and invited 15 or 20 parents of our students that we identified in Key Stage 3 that we knew if their parents were able to help them at home, it would make the difference. If their parents could sit with them and do 15 minutes of reading at home, this is what we could see it transforming. And we sat down and read with them, and actually I'm really lucky because of my background in industry. I got a couple of my old companies that I used to work for, like John Lewis, for example, to provide us with some of their materials that they use, so some of their product information that they create. And we didn't sit down with them and start reading little Timmy just to take his dog for a walk. We actually got some information from John Lewis and said, right, this is what John Lewis has written about, this is their product release for their new thing. Right, how do we understand this? What is the most important information? And did it from that way. And actually we've got loads of really brilliant resources which I'd be very happy to put in a Dropbox, which are almost adult literacy resources that we use with these parents, but we're now flowing into our most vulnerable students in Key Stage 4 who are not going to get any GCSEs and need those life skills. So we've got some stuff on job applications. Someone was just trying to apply for a job and they needed to word something, and that morning when they came and did this workshop with us, we sat down and helped them, write their job application. And it really helped. And I think for me it was that step. It was we made the choice to put reading ages on their reports, and actually out of all of the other data that parents get home, that was the one that they hooked onto. And when that's not good enough, and I was was like, well, this is why, let's fix it.
Test do you use to assess the reading ages?
We use something on a computer that they have to answer lots of questions, and yes, absolutely, it comes.
Yes, that's not always works for you.
It's one of the, I can probably find out for you.
And isn't it marvellous?
Yes.
How it can tell.
Yes, it's so clever that
It's not
machine.
working very well at the moment.
Oh, it is now.
You had a really good thing about extreme reading, didn't you?
Yeah, so my extreme reading, because it can become a little bit gimmicky, I've got a special educational needs tutoring. So I do extreme reading every holiday. So I will take my tutor group, we broke up for half term yesterday, I take my tutor group to the library yesterday, they all chose a book that they were going to read, we photograph each student with a book, put it on our tutor group Twitter feed. They then have to go over the holidays and read that book and take a photo of themselves somewhere. Now my tutor group, again, because of this Croydon bubble, don't tend to go anywhere other than Primark and Croydon. So I will get a lot of photographs of them reading their book on the escalators in Primark. But again, and then if every student in my tutor group reads their book and brings me an extreme reading photograph, we will give them a pizza lunch that first Friday back, where we sit and swap books. We talk about what we enjoyed and we have to recommend that book for someone else. And I think I've been into lots of schools where they've done extreme reading and it's brilliant, they've got a photograph of a kid on a jet ski with a book, but I don't know whether that kid read that book, you know, so what is kind of what I'm saying, you know, what. And for me, forcing my tutor group to do it like that means that some of those kids, A, cannot read, and will have only read a page, or may have even only read the blurb, but at least they trying to do it by themselves at home. And then I can pick them up in tutor time and go, all right, well, let's read the first chapter together. I'll read a line, you read a line, let's do it like that. And those sorts of things, again, I think it takes, like you said, bloody mindedness.
Yeah, it really does.
Because that's such a huge commitment for me to do that. And I think that's the real challenge with tackling reading is that I'm hitting 26 kids out of 2,000 at my school.
I think that's the thing though, isn't it? It's everything. It's you know, extreme reading can make reading seem cool, which is good because it will hook some kids in thinking it's cool, but you can't do it on its own and you can't, you know, you have to do then something for this type of kid and, you know, court reading and talking to parents. It's like it is a whole kind of bowl of...
I want to tell you a little bit and really recommend finding other schools in the area and arranging school visits on the explicit aim to find out how they're promoting reading, because it has been so exciting. I went to visit one school recently called Little London Community School, and if you're anywhere near Leeds, go and visit Little London Community School. It's a primary school in a genuinely difficult area, please. So, for example, the head teacher's got 53 languages going on in just over 200 pupils. She's got massive illiteracy amongst the parent body, and she's got very significant non-English in the parents. So some of them can't read or write in any language, but a huge amount of them can't read and write in English. And she has, I wish I brought the statistics for you of her literacy shift that she's created, but this woman is one of those people where you don't know whether to cry or poke her or what to do when you meet her, because it's absolutely incredible what she's done in that group. And I said to her, how are you doing? Like, what are you doing? And there's me teaching English. It's nothing in comparison to what she's absolutely done in this community. And she said, reading is the key, and parents are the key, and reading and parents is the key. And really, she's done this drip, 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 bloody-mindedness, love, and other people. And she's done a huge range of different things. So she's got parents' evening attendance from 13% up to 99%. And she did a variety of different things. She moved the parents' evening to 2:30 till 4:30, several nights a week, so that TAs take the class and then she starts the parents' evening before pick-up. The idea being that the most likely attendance time is half an hour around pick-up time, so she does half an hour before and after. She uses visual ways to sign up. She stopped sending letters home because there was no point sending a letter home about parents' evening to people who couldn't read letters. It was completely fruitless kind of thing. So at pick-up she's got these big visual displays, and the children sign up for the parents, the child takes the parent and signs up. She does all these different things. If they don't sign up, she calls them to arrange an appointment for them. And she said she got to 96%, and this is what I mean about love and bloody mindedness. She got to 96%. She thought, how can I get to 100? And you just think, oh. So what she did is she started to visit people in their houses and knock on the door and say, this is the head teacher, this is not in an easy part of Leeds to be knocking on doors, and she was knocking on the door and said, I am your teacher's head teacher and I have an obligation to be working with you to help your child have a great life. And you know, she said it's jumped to 99% now off the back of that. She really is an incredibly inspiring woman. And the message I got from her was the collaboration bit. She said, accept help and offer help. So she has coming into the school solicitors, bank managers. She's been to every business in our local area and said, how many people can you offer me for half an hour a week to come and talk to the children about books, or to read with them, or to read to them, or to be involved with our school?
What about reaching for those people?
I didn't ask her that, but it's because it's in the context of other people.
The teachers should be there as well.
Yeah. So presumably you do a certain level, there's a half check, isn't there, that you can do as long as there are other people there. Yeah. So, but she's got lots and lots of businesses because it's part of, somebody might understand this better than me, because it's part of a system where they're entitled to a certain amount of hours to work as volunteers in the business community. Therefore, that's what they're spending their hours on, is to come in. What else was she doing that blew my mind? She was starting with speech all the time, so she doesn't see the children as illiterate. She sees them as not being able to read and write. So they do performance poetry, they do drama, they do storytelling, they do singing. One of these moments when I wanted to hug her was when she said, we do a lot of singing here. And I just thought, yes, you do, don't you? You know, the children do huge amounts of singing as a step towards their literacy. They do lots and lots of reading. They start with all of that. And she has the parents deeply involved in the life of the school. So for the first half hour of the school, for reception, and I think it's year one as well, the parents are invited to drop off and then stay for half an hour. And they get involved with the assembly or reading or some different things that are going on. But honestly, if you're in Leeds, go and see Little London Community School. If you're not in Leeds, there are schools like that. There are schools like that that are doing all these things and visiting. I mean, I'm really lucky in that I finish early on every other Tuesday, and so I'm allowed to go at that point when I finish early. I'm allowed to go and visit my school. But it's amazing how you
trusted to do
open your doors. Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm very keen. I'm a keynote. But when if you ring up a school, as we would, somebody rings you up and says, can I please come see how you're promoting a love of reading in your school? They're like, yeah, when do you want to come? Come in, have coffee, do this. And then I said to them, well, what if we brought some of our sixth forms in to do some reading with your children? She said, oh yeah, and then it all starts to bubble together. So the collaboration idea, I mean, we're all big on that, I think, but the idea that actually the draining, it's so exhausting to be so passionate about something and use all of your energy, but you actually don't need to use all of your energy because there is energy out there that other people are prepared to put in and get involved with. And I found it, I can't recommend too highly going to visit other schools somehow. I mean, it's CPD, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you can persuade somebody else to let you. I was going to talk a little bit about what I was doing just for 5 minutes, and I think I've got just about 5 minutes. I've come up with this three-pronged approach. I've decided if I want them to read for pleasure, I have to model it, I have to insist on it, and then I have to notice it, where it's happening. And that's my little, very, very simple recipe for promoting reading for pleasure as an individual teacher. So I'm modelling it by reading all the time, and I'm now stopping in the middle of lessons and going, a short sentence for impact. You know, I read an amazing short sentence for impact in the book I'm in the middle of. Pick it up. Oh, yes, here it is. But of course, obviously, I beg your pardon, I've obviously set all of that up in advance, but it means that it feels to them as though I'm continually talking. And I also do things like this. This is the book I'm in the middle of right now, right? Marcus Sedgwick, My Sword Hand is Singing. But I do things like, it's beautiful. I do things like I say, guys, I've finished my book. Which one shall I read next? And not, often they haven't read it, but there's maybe somebody in the room who has an opinion, or sometimes they just go on the cover. They go, actually, miss, the cover from that one looks seriously dark and interesting. And it's such a more personal question than, which one of these two do you think is best and why? Which one shall I read this weekend is involving a relationship between me as a reader and them potentially as a reader. And I'm surprised by how often they say, you know that book where I told you should read it because it had a really interesting cover. Well, what was the story after all this?
You have to read it to find out.
Yes, well, no, I often tell them the beginning and then I say, no spoilers, I'm not going to tell you. I brought loads and loads of books into my classroom because I had too many at home anyway, and I could have taken them to the charity shop, And I thought, you know what, if a kid nicks a book, I've succeeded. So I brought, I put bookcases. I've got 3 big bookcases now, and they're full, not of books that are all the same, but of my spares from home. And the children are responding to the fact that those are in the room. It's really interesting. So I've had kids saying, I noticed you've got such and such a book on the shelf, or Miss, have you read them all? And this is just, it's just a visual stimulus to what's going on. And if you turn the page, these are all nicked off other people, and I haven't really got going yet. My display is going to be, and I'm pledging it here, my display is going to be, these books are being read by teachers, these are the teachers reading them, guess which teacher's reading which book, and I've got the head of PE and the head of history and a few other people in, and I want them to play, guess which teacher's reading which book.
And they got a prize. They get all right.
Chocolate or something, yeah.
Yeah.
So we're going to do that. There's a lovely one at Wellington Academy there of first lines in books, really nice at the bottom, and the one about 16 classics to read before you're 16 and caught my attention, but I love the one on the right the most, and I'm going to do this maybe next year, not this year. This is read a Year 7 form reading their height in book spines. So they put a Year 7, and Chris will tell you more because it was him, and it's being written up for Nate apparently, but they put a kid against the wall and mark the height like you do, you know, and then the form trying to read the height of the child, book spine at a time. You have to produce some little thing to prove that you've read it or sort of read it. And then the librarian's photocopying. So those are photocopies of the spines of books. Isn't that a gorgeous idea?
Yeah.
I really like that idea. In the classroom right now, I'm breaking all sorts of rules and being rebellious. I'm doing a lot of reading because I have a faithful leap that if I do a lot of reading with them, then their literacy will improve, and as long as I'm conscious in pulling things out, then it's going to feed in. And the fact that I haven't, because you've only got so much lesson time, but I'm spending a lot of it reading books with them, and we'll just have to hope that I don't get into trouble for it. The video camera's on every day. But they seem supportive at school, shall we say. They're supportive about this at this moment. So then the insisting on it is interesting, because I really think that children need to borrow our self-discipline, and in actual fact I don't want to stand next to a silent child and say turn the page, but I do need to find ways to make sure that the reading actually happens. And I wasn't reading very much until I made the commitment I was going to read a book a week and started that self-discipline. And I always say to them, look, if I said to you we're going to run a marathon in a year, that would give you some sort of way, and you would start to do a little bit at a time. And so I'm kind of going to make you do that little bit at a time, because I want you to practice, you know, consciously practice reading for 20 minutes, 3 times a week or whatever. So we do a lot, and it's a maybe dig out thing, but I can't believe how well it works, that they're in groups of 3 and they're reading to each other. There's one group in every class that isn't. But isn't there 3 people in every class that isn't reading whatever you do? And I tend to go over and read to them. So that's my insisting on it. And now that I've got them setting each other homework of how many pages, so they have a minimum of 10 pages set, and I say, you have to set your group, your book club, 10 minutes worth of reading homework, but you could set them more. And 2 groups in my Year 8 girls, it is a Year 8 girls class. It is a Year 8 girls class. But set themselves to finish the book for the half term, and I was like, oh really? I'm so excited. Which brings me, on reasonable timing, I think, to this idea of notice it, because Twitter debates about praise and whether praise benefits and praise doesn't benefit and all that. I cannot be bothered with debating whether praise works or not. In my opinion, it's very simple. We have to notice what is going on for children. We can praise empty praise, or we can give constructive criticism. It doesn't matter whether it's praise or whether it's criticism. It matters whether we are actually genuinely noticing that child, what's going on for that child, what's experienced inside them. And in this case, because that's the specific focus, I notice whether they're reading or not. So they'll come up to me when I'm on duty in the lunch hall and say, Miss, I'm reading such and such a book. And I will make sure that I let the right go on somewhere else, and I haven't stopped everything to pay that child my undivided attention and say, ooh, how are you finding the book? What's going on? What's it like? And all those kind of things, so that they know it is noticed by me if they're reading or not reading. And it might not be actually noticed by anybody else in some cases. because that's my commitment and I've chosen to be involved with their reading and maybe nobody else has.
That's really important.
Yeah.
I get quite a lot of my current year 10s, they write and they send me chapters of their books that they're in the process of writing, and it's lovely because I read their work and I get to give them some feedback on it, but it also allows me to see what kind of things they're writing, and I can recommend books based on that as well. And it's nice that sort of 6 weeks in, 5 weeks in, I'm getting kids coming back now and going, oh, you know that book that you told me to read, really enjoying that, and it is exciting.
And you know what, it's so simple, but I know it with my son, you know. Yes, darling, you're wonderful, I'm so glad your homework's so beautiful. If I actually need to stop and read his homework and go, oh, why did you say that? You know, it's noticing what's going on with kids, I think, is where it's at, definitely, big time. So we might have 2 more minutes.
Sometimes you can read notice, you can give them little awards, can't you?
Yeah, well, I think there's lots of ways, and I think it's got to be consistent with the natural personality of the person. I feed people chocolate, but, you know, different people, it's consistent with them and what makes them.
I have to buy them shoes and things because if I bought them chocolate, they'd never get to the kid.
No, it's only my 6th form get chocolate, not the.
I've eaten it all the time.
Not the younger ones. And I think we are on last minute, and I was actually almost going to do a tiny silly plenary, which I'm going to write this down. Which book from when you were under 18 has stayed with you till now? Because I'm going to write them down. I asked my husband is a reluctant reader, and I asked my husband this, and the book that he recommended is going down really well with my year 8 boys because it stayed with him, so it's working on them. So let's go.
2.
Yeah.
The Wave by Morton Root.
Yeah.
And the very careful from my English teacher. He sent my English teacher the I left.
Quite political.
Yeah, absolutely.
You are.
Just a bit.
Right, Chris.
It's sad because I identified with the lead character, Charlie in the Chocolate Factory. I don't know how many times I read that, all back and sideways. I wanted to ride in the glass elevator, and I wanted to be that poor boy who...
I wanted to drink chocolate.
No, it was deeper than that, Lindsay. It was...
Just because
it was
superficial.
Yeah, it was stories about, you know, bratish children that I went to school with, and me, and I was different, and I was, you know... Yeah, absolutely.
I had a book read to me when I was in primary school, and then a little bit of it on social media, Facebook, and it's The Dark Portal by Robin Jarvis.
The Dark
Portal by Robin Jarvis, and I finally found it when I was about 11, and I've read all his books now. It's about the world of mice. I still loved it. The world of mice.
Annie.
When I was very young, it was Mallory Towers because I wanted to go to boarding school. I wanted to be.
Because it's like that.
Yeah,
exactly like that.
Darryl and all the others. They had such a fun time. And but as I got a bit older, I Captured the Castle by J.D. Smith, which I just thought was so evocative and atmospheric. I really love that and recommend that to students. Yeah.
I'm so sorry. Is it Lindsay?
It is Lindsay, yeah. When I was quite young, I think the sort of the famous 5. Yeah. I wanted to be George, the girl that was, you know, tomboy.
Yeah.
I felt really was actually a tomboy. And then the Lord of the Rings, I suppose. That generation, you didn't have as many books to choose from, I don't think. But there were books. There were plenty of them, but it's just not the spectrum of
Your name, I'm sorry.
It's Diamond. My favourite would have been Jane Eyre. But I think when I was 18, I also fell in love with my favourite book was Ian McEwan's On Chesapeake Beach.
Teaching that again after half term.
That's the time of year again.
That's like reading that out loud to the year 12. Yeah.
Actually, I was teaching anything like that.
Oh, really?
We do a lovely comparison between On Chesapeake Beach and The Streetcar Named Desire. So very dodgy.
I really liked Red Sky in the Morning by Elizabeth Laird. That always stuck with me. It's quite dark in some ways, I don't know if anyone else About a girl who's she has a little brother and he's born, and it turns out he's severely disabled, and it's a really good book. And then Tessa the Devils. That's awesome. Cried.
No, I didn't like
Weeps.
This one in the morning by who?
Elizabeth Laird. She's really good. She's a bit like Anne Fine, Judy Bloom, that sort of.
Oh, Judy Bloom, yeah.
The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton, which I've just made my daughter read. She loved it, yeah.
She told you she was
Yeah, she was like, we get to live like this anymore.
So when I was really young, I used to love the Worst Witch books. They were amazing. But one that always sticks with me that I still love teaching it now, Animal Farm. Absolute classic.
I grew up in Malawi in South Africa, and it was illegal there because there was a dictator in power, and they felt that it was too pertinent to look at the situation there. And I remember a friend of mine's dad got a copy of it on the video, and my parents, because you got 24 hours to leave the country if you were caught doing something that was deemed to be not in support of the regime. And my parents stopped me from visiting their house because they had a copy of Animal Farm on the property. And that would be enough to get us thrown out. So for me, Animal Farm is very, very personal. And for me, it would be The Dark is Rising, Susan King's. I loved it when I was a child. I love all this whole kind of, I still think there's magic.
I used to, we all got them at the school library, and my friend and I both loved them so much. We were like fighting over who was going to get the book. The next book when it came out, it came to the library. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, and I think it's
Thank you.